Hi, this short video is to talk about lines. A lot of the theoretical readings that we have in this class will discuss lines from a theoretical point of view, in terms of history, in terms of theory, how we find them in architecture, what they actually mean in architecture. In this video, the thoughts that I want to share are a little bit different. It addresses more where we see lines and how we see lines in our daily lives. So, for example, I picked this gadget that we made. It's sitting around the office. If you look at it this way, it's just a bunch of lines. But when you look at it from a different angle, the lines become three-dimensional, and then we might give purpose. One is aesthetical, because we might debate that it's beautiful, and another role of this item will be more functional, say a pen holder or a business card holder, among other things. And if we think about a line as well in terms of product design, we might think that a line always needs to transform into a surface and then becomes three-dimensional for it to serve its purpose. However, this is something I picked up from, it was just in the shop of the Jewish Museum in Berlin, and it's actually bigger, but it won't fit in the frame, so I deconstructed it into something smaller. And if you look at it, it's a bunch of lines that is to which we give purpose by attaching clips, so then it becomes a photo holder, for example, and it holds, I'm sure many of you have seen this item sitting around before. So then it becomes an artifact with a purpose, it becomes a product. This is just me thinking about lines from things that are around the office. This is my home office. We can also think of lines from nature. And when I say nature, I mean the city we live in, the environment we live in, especially now with lockdowns, where it might be just the view outside of our window if we're not going out too much, or it could be just things we see in our walk in a park or in an urban setting or in nature in general. So we can think of nature, of the line, as the line of the horizon, something that goes from left to right, north to south, depending on how we see things. And I've taken a clip this afternoon, just before sunset, from my balcony overlooking Beirut, because I wanted to share with you how we can observe little things in our daily life. Especially when starting to think about design, things don't need to be overcomplicated, especially at first. A line can also be a timeline, how things move forward, a timeline or a graph of our age, of our weight, of our feelings, of how much books we're reading per week. It could be just an input of data that we're collecting. A line also can be of a distance. If we look at Earth, thinking of it as a sphere, we might think, for example, that Beirut and Portland are very far, or Beirut and Vancouver in Canada are very far. However, when we try to book airplane tickets, the flight almost look as long or as short as trying to fly to the East Coast in some cases. So a line might be deceiving. For example, Portland latitude is the same as Milano in Italy. So, which might be surprising. I thought it would be like the same latitude as Paris, but I checked this afternoon and it's Milano. So that's also interesting, because lines and geometry in general can be deceiving. And instead of being upset that it's deceiving us, we can use geometry and lines, and even points to tweak the perception of the viewer, to change how things are seen or are presented. A line also can be a relationship. I'm a new mom, and when we were discussing with the instructors, we were all discussing the lines. One item came to my mind, which is the umbilical cord that connects a mother to the child when they're born. So it could be a relationship. And in the same way, where it could mean a loving relationship or a symbiosis relationship. It could also mean dispute or separation. Beirut went through a lot of wars. The most recent, that was a lengthy war actually, was the civil war from 1975 to 1990. And for a few years within these 15 years, there was a separation, which was a connection of multiple roads that created kind of like a north to south separation that we call the Green Line, because it separated East Beirut from West Beirut, Muslim Beirut from Christian Beirut. So that's an awful reality, physical manifestation of what a line can do. Even though if it's drawn on a map, the impact of that would be very big and tremendous and unhappy. A line can also mean a progression, going from point A to point B, flying from point A to point B, or even walking up the hill from a certain altitude to another altitude. A line could also be technology, like, you know, a line of telephone, or how we imagine bits of information traveling from one person to another, with information going viral, etc. So in that sense, a line can be power. And a line could also mean a collection of words, like we actually say it's a line of poetry. So visually, that line of poetry, when we zoom out, looks like a black line or a dotted line or a dashed line. However, when we zoom in, we can see the individual words, and then each line will have a meaning, whether it's love, hatred, friendship, fear, whatever emotion that comes with that kind of line. And the last thought that I want to share, and I know some of you might come from agricultural areas, some of you might come from urban areas, some of you might have lived in both or several of these settings. I come from an agricultural town before actually my parents moved to the city. A line reminds me of the trace that farmers leave behind in the soil before they actually put their seeds to plant. And they also remind me of the weaving pattern of any weaving activity, like weaving hay or weaving bamboo or weaving carpets. And if we think of these activities won't be done unless we have hope in tomorrow, which might be hard to think of in hopeful sense, especially in 2020. But these activities have been done for thousands of years. And they have been done because we have hope in tomorrow. So these are some ideas that come to my mind when I think of line. Some of them are a little bit practical, some of them are a little bit poetic. And I'm just discussing them with you as if I'm sitting with all of you in a classroom or a living room. And for the theoretical part, as I mentioned, I think these will be more addressed in the classroom setting.